not let a woman... Men, we have a pandemic in our world today, and it's not COVID-19. It's divorce. How do you protect your bride or your future bride, if you're a single guy, against it? Today, we're going to unpack 10 marriage-saving guardrails, but stay tuned to the very end of this podcast because I'm going to reveal a bonus guardrail for you single guys, and that's how these things start. Do not do that ever. I never... women, I just avoid that like the plague. Hey guys, I want to jump right into the meat of this podcast, and I want to talk to you about a book idea I'm considering called Guardrails, Protecting Your Bride Against the Pandemic of Divorce. And so we've talked a lot about guardrails in the past. We've had videos on Instagram and Twitter that have gone viral and seen millions and millions of views. And I just want to go back. I want to circle back and go through my chapter, The Faithful Man, and review these guardrails. So here we go. Guardrail number 1 is emotional healing. In other words, never develop an emotional connection with the person of the opposite sex that is not your wife. Now, of course, if it's your mother or your grandma or your sister or whatever family member, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about developing an emotional connection with a woman that you are not locked into through the covenant of marriage. Guardrail number 2. Perception is reality. So here we go. Never be with a person of the opposite sex unless it is at work with an open door and window. Do not go to lunch, go to dinner. Do not have public meetings with you and a person of the opposite sex being alone. When you do that, people start to ask questions. And whenever people have to ask questions about your relationship with your bride, because of another woman, a problem is arising. I was having lunch with my wife several years ago now, and a dude walked in. His marriage at the time was struggling. He walked in with another woman for lunch, a woman he worked with, and he instantly came over and started backpedaling because this gentleman realized that he had breached a guardrail, and he had to explain himself because we were formulating thoughts, opinions, and questions in our brain about why he would be in that restaurant with that woman alone during that season of his life. So do not get yourself locked into a situation where people are going to be in to fill in the story loop that you've created because you're out in public with a woman that's not your wife. Guardrail number 3 is ye old ball and chain. In other words, never engage in negative talk about your bride with a person of the opposite sex. You hear these guys saying all the time, I'm going to go home to the old ball and chain. Don't ever do that when you're speaking to another woman. It opens a door. I've seen countless violations of the marriage covenant through adultery start with a man saying something negative about his wife and a woman coming alongside and complimenting him over what he said negatively about his wife. And that's how these things start. Do not do that ever. Guardrail number 4. No more cheesy one-liners. In other words, never compliment a woman, a person of the opposite sex, in a way that would elicit an emotional response. So, you don't flip the tag in the back of her shirt and you go, "That's what I thought, made in heaven." Stupid stuff like that. Are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see. Stupid stuff like that. Do not compliment a woman of the opposite sex, a person of the opposite sex that would elicit an emotional response. Okay, and listen, if you happen to compliment her, like you notice her hair or you notice something, you need to wave your wife into it so fast, like, "Oh, my wife just dyed her hair." Man, do not let those hang in the air. Do not not ever let a woman try to fill in the blanks of what you're really saying there. Your best bet is to not compliment a woman of the opposite person of the opposite sex in any way that would elicit an emotional response. And when I say elicit an emotional response, I think it's okay to say, "Hey, you're great at your job. Hey, you're a great teammate. Hey, man, what you do for our organization is like top shelf. It is tier 1." I think complimenting when it comes to work-related stuff, but not in a way that's going to elicit an emotional response where she's going to project something onto you as a person, all right? Guardrail number 5, no more cross-training. So what do I mean by that? I mean, never have a mentoring or counseling relationship with a person of the opposite sex. You do not have to do that. The only person that you ever should have ongoing weekly meetings with is the date night you have with your wife. There is no excuse for mentoring or counseling a woman. Guardrail number 6. I call this the pair of oxen. You know, the guy who led me to the Lord once said this statement. He said, a pair of breasts can pull a man further than a pair of oxen ever could. Here's the guardrail. Never make physical contact beyond a casual handshake, side hug, or something like that with a person of the opposite sex. I never full frontal hug women. I just avoid that like the plague, unless, you know, I see somebody, she comes in hot and like I can't side turn in time. I just avoid that at all costs. I do not want my body touching sexual parts of her body. I just don't think that's appropriate. I just avoid that like the plague. I keep my contact with women, you know, high five, knuckles, side hug. It's very, very casual. And even with my daughters-in-law, I just try to give them a real hard, I love you side hug. You can still say you love somebody deeply without getting awkward about it. I just avoid it. I think that's wise. Guardrail number 7, I call this the Joker. Never make foul, rude, coarse, or sexual comments to a person of the opposite sex. You should never do that anyway, but especially to the person of the opposite sex. You want to avoid that. You want to avoid opening a door for sexual innuendo to come in. So I do not joke with the ladies. I don't mess around that way. I mean, keep it business only. Keep it legit. All right. Number 8 is we the people. In other words, never give a gift. By the way, we the people, Declaration of Independence. Thank you very much. Never give a gift or card to a person of the opposite sex that is only from you. Always make it from us. Always sign it. We appreciate you. We care about you. We think you're awesome. Write in the word we a lot or our a lot. Do not send personal gifts to even if it's from work. Don't do it. Keep it we and us. Guardrail number 9, crossing I's and dotting T's. Here it is. Never engage in a conversation about the personal details of your marriage with a person of the opposite sex unless your wife is present. So if you're in a home group setting or you're at a couple's, you know, you and another couple are out to dinner, I mean, I am okay with that part. But when you're alone with another woman and like it's a work type of relationship, a lot of these happen at work, guys. A lot of this stuff happens at work. So do not go into the details, the I's and the T's of your marriage. Do not go into the details with a person of the opposite sex. Guardrail number 10, I call this the King James donkey. So King James donkey. So in the King James version of the Bible, the word used for donkey is ass. So never assume your bride is living by your standards. So when you assume, you make a donkey out of you and me. So always be engaged with your wife. Always ask questions. You know, my wife and I have tracked my iPhone, so I know where she's at when she's working. I know where she's at when she's traveling home from a flight. Like tonight, she's coming home from Hawaii. She'll be on the road at 11:30 at night. I'll track her all the way home, make sure she gets home safe. But I want to know where she is. She's got full access to my phone so that we are engaged in each other's lives. And it's not a trust issue. It's more of a, hey, I'm engaged in this relationship, so if we see anything that gets off course, we can talk to each other about that and maybe why that happened, okay? So here's the bonus guardrail. Here we go. Guardrail for you single guys. Are you ready? Guardrail for your single guys is this. I call it the 5 P's of the single guy. This could be a whole equipping episode. First of all, the purpose of marriage is covenant, not contract. So everything that you know about being single, and if you want to and you feel led towards marriage someday, it is always going to be about covenant, not a contract. The second P is this: maintain sexual purity. Psalm 118 verses 9 and 10 says, how can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your word. I've hidden your word in my heart that I may not sin against you. So while you're single, live that way. Do not engage in sexual relationships with other people. Live a life of sexual purity, whether that be on the internet or the movies you watch, the songs you listen to, or the relationships you have. The next one is this, and this is really, really important. The first two are obvious, but this one isn't. Pray for your future bride. You know, I gave my life to Christ, and I went 3 years, and I never touched a female. From the 3 years I gave my life to Christ until I met Shanna, I prayed for her as much or more as I prayed for myself. I mean, I prayed for her, lifted her up. When she came into my life, I knew who she was very, very fast. So pray for your bride daily. Keep her always on your heart, mind, and prayers. The next one is this. Prepare yourself for her. You want your wife to be the woman that you want your wife to be. Let me say it this way. You want your wife to be the woman that you have deserved because you've prepared yourself for her. Don't go around sleeping around and doing all sorts of stupid stuff and expect your wife to live the same way. So you need to really prepare yourself to be the man that she's been praying for and the man that she deserves. The last one is this: prostitution of cohabitation. I just want you to know that when you choose to live with a woman outside the covenant of marriage, you are not only prostituting her, but you're prostituting a sacred covenant of marriage. Yes, you can date. Yes, you can have a relationship, but living together outside the covenant of marriage is prostituting the marriage covenant. Do not do it. If you have a bro who is living outside of this guardrail mandate, you see some breaches in guardrail, you see a marriage under duress, you see the pandemic of divorce getting ready to claim another victim, man, shoot this podcast over to him and man, watch it transform his life. Guys, hey, until next time, feel the wet sound on the arena floor. Hear the deafening roar of the crowd. Taste the sweetness of victory. Smell the stench of battle. Get in the game. Get dirty. Grind it out. Build walls around your bride. And be a man.